paper up here, and we are going alive. Live, not alive. We are alive. That's a big difference. Okay, so good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How is everybody today?
Good.
So we are going to go back to the south into the U.S. state of Alabama.
All right.
So by a show of hands, has anyone been to Alabama? Anybody? No. Okay, that's totally fine. That's totally fine.
So we're going to learn a lot today.
Yeah, we are going to learn about Alabama. Some things you already know, some things you may not have known, but we're going to talk about it anyway. So let's start with the flag, shall we? So it's pretty straightforward. Just basically a white band with a red St. Andrew's cross. And that's it. That's not much to talk about. The way I like to think of it, the English flag went a little further. That's it. I mean, there's not much to talk about. So that's the flag you're going to be seeing throughout the U.S. state of Alabama. It cannot be that hard to miss. It's just basically a white field with a red, a red cross. So not the Red Cross, the organization. That's a whole other story. We already talked about that in Switzerland, but that's a whole other story. Let's move on to the next slide, shall we? So to those of you who are wondering, Alabama is located way down here. And remember Mississippi and Georgia and Tennessee? Yeah, we already talked about those. And Alabama is one of the few states that have the Mexico Gulf Coast right over here. So the Gulf of Mexico right here, and it encompasses a few other states. We already talked about them: Florida, Mississippi, Texas, and not Louisiana, but we're getting there. We're going to get there. So the largest city, the capital of Alabama is Montgomery, but the largest city is Huntsville. And so when you go to Alabama, generally speaking, it is hot during the summer and spring times, but during the autumn and winter times, it's pretty cold. It could be something as low as 67 degrees during the winter time. So you may want to put on some sweaters when you get there. But geographically speaking, it's pretty much defined by just mountain ridges, hills, deep valleys. And I don't know if you guys remember the Appalachia mountain region that encompasses practically a lot of the American East Coast. Yeah, the Appalachia ends sort of right here. I say sort of because technically it ends with Mississippi to some extent or another. And so, like I said, it has a lot of these mountain regions, and then you're going to find that there are some barrier islands on the bottom here, but those are a bit small for you guys to see. So let's talk about some brief history, shall we? So this is what Alabama looks like on an old map. So you have these territories right next to each other, Mississippi and Alabama. So do you guys remember back when we talked about Mississippi that there were these Mississippian native tribes that lived around here? Yeah, they also lived in Alabama prior to European settlement. So back then, it became a separate territory in 1817, but it wasn't until a couple of years later it became a U.S. state. So in case any of you are also wondering where the name Alabama comes from, it comes from the native Alabama, the ancient Alabama people who lived here along the, river lines, especially along the Mississippi. So not too different from each other, but still unique enough, So let's move on to the next slide. See what Alabama is known for. So look at this. It's the Gulf Coast. So any of you like going to the beach? You're going to love this. So yeah, it's pretty well known for its water sports hub. So in other words, you'll find a lot of swimming, surfing, a little bit of other extracurricular activities. So, it's also known for its fishing piers. So if any of you like to go fishing, this is a great place to go. Yep. And so what I've understood is that this is one of the top 10 beach destinations in the U.S. That's what I found in my research. So anyone interested, put on some sunscreen and enjoy the waters. Let's move on to the next slide. So this is just an entrance to a much bigger area known as the Cathedral Caverns. It is a state park and natural history reserve, and it's an archaeological excavation site. People are still finding things in the caves, as we're about to see in the next slide. Take a look at this. These are the inside of the cathedral caves. So here's a question for you. Do any of you see a cathedral inside? No? No?
To the right.
It's because people have said these look like organ pipes, and this looks like an altar. It's called a cathedral cave. It's called cathedral caves because if you look at structures of churches and chapels, any place of worship, cathedrals are usually the biggest. Churches are somewhere in the middle between chapels that are very tiny versus cathedrals that are very huge. They could stand as tall as, 50 feet. Probably much more than that if you go to Europe, for example, where some of the biggest cathedrals are, especially in Italy. So that kind of reminds me of that. You got your organ pipes, the altars, and then you got your crossways. Yeah, people are still finding excavation findings over there. Pottery, knives, bows, arrowheads, things like that.
Really?
Yeah, people are still finding things over there. So if you guys want to take a look at 7,000 years of history, yeah, there it is. This thing can be traced back to 7,000 BCE.
That's really cool.
Yep. Let's talk about more things that the state of Alabama is known for. It may not look like much on the outside, but this is the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. So it is a museum and research center in Birmingham, and it depicts the struggles of the civil rights movement back in the 1960s. So when you go to this little museum, you're going to learn some very detailed history about what went on during the 50s and 60s during the struggles. I think I have another picture on the next slide.
Why they changed it.
Oh no, we got sports. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. Just like Mississippi, these people do not have a professional sports team. Instead, what they are known for is their college teams.
Yeah.
So you have the Alabama Crimson Tide. So these guys are from the University of Alabama. And they have 21 varsity teams. Again, whatever sports you can cram into a school, that's what they got. Football, soccer, tennis. Yeah, pretty much. And they are rivals with another school we're going to talk about. So this is the Auburn Tigers. They're from Auburn University, but they have 20 varsity teams. Yep. And again, if you could fit a sport into a school, they have it. I was not able to find any statistics on these guys, so better luck next time, right? So let's move on to the next one. Who's hungry?
Yeah.
So in case you guys are wondering, this is goat cheese. It is what it sounds like. It is milk. It is cheese made from goat milk. Yeah, you'll find these everywhere. So let's move on to the next one. Let's talk about more. So, when in the South, fried chicken.
They all know what that is, huh?
Oh, I don't need to explain this, do I? No.
Does that look good?
Yeah.
Huh?
Like I mentioned earlier, there's a funny pattern going to the American South. Fried chicken seems to be a commodity over there, a very popular food staple. So don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. Let's move on to the next one. Who's hungry for more? Ready?
Oh, yeah.
Barbecue ribs. Yeah. So if fried chicken is a popular commodity, so is ribs. They were roommates during college. Yes, Virginia. Yep, we all do too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Everyone likes ribs.
I do.
Yeah, just careful not to get any mess on yourself because they add a lot of sauce. And by the way, we're not done with food. We're not done. We're not done. Who likes crab cakes? So generally speaking, people will have crab cakes on the shell. They just fry it with breading on it, throw in a side of lemon. So yeah. And because they live along the coast, yeah, do not be surprised that you'll find some seafood like crab cakes. Oh, and we're still not done with food. Here's a fun fact. Oh, you wanted ribs again? All right. Who likes ice cream? What's the old saying? Ice cream for ice cream? So, in case you guys are wondering what this flavor is, it is orange pineapple. If you like oranges, if you like pineapples, orange pineapple ice cream. Yep, everyone like that? Oh, you're going to love this. You're going to love this next one. Peach ice cream. They don't serve it to you in a bowl, they serve it to you in a container. A metal container like this. Yeah, they just chop it up and throw in those peaches. So, yeah. Oh, did I forget to mention that just like Georgia, they are a producer of peaches. So Alabama might as well also be called the other peach state, just because of their peaches. So, with on the food, let's talk about some famous people, shall we? Do any of these people look familiar to any of you?
Oh, wow. Bruce said, oh, wow.
No?
Who is that, Bruce?
Do you know who these people are?
Yeah,
No?
I think so.
Who is it? Can you tell me who that is?
Could be.
Uh,
I get the name of it.
I think
No.
I got the name.
okay, so let me introduce you to my right, this is Truman Capote. And right across from him, Harper Lee. Sound familiar?
No.
Okay, so Truman Capote and Harper Lee are well-known novelists. Truman Capote is known for books like a certain short story called Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Okay.
And Harper Lee, there are those of you who, like me, read this certain book in high school called To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah, as we're about to see on the next slide. These are it. Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I never read this in high school. I never read this at all, but I did read To Kill a Mockingbird. And I did see the movie that it was adapted into. So, yeah. So, if any of you are familiar with any of these famous stories that were adapted into a movie, yeah, these are the people. So just like with Mississippi, Alabama has produced some writers. Yeah, speaking of writers, let's move on to the next one. Here's another famous person. Recognize this? Who is this? You know who this is? No? All right, so let me just tell you. This is Helen Keller. Famous for that book, The Story of My Life. The autobiography some of you are very familiar with, where she details her struggles about being both blind and deaf. Yep. Yep. So I also read this little story, but this one I read back when I was in elementary school. So I was very familiar with her very early on. So later in her life, she became an advocate for world peace. So yeah, if any of you have a library near you, pick up a book by any of these famous writers. They are good reads. Even though I've never read Breakfast at Tiffany's, I can get an idea that it might be a good read. So let's talk about the people, shall we? So here's a physical map of Alabama. Here's the capital, Montgomery, and here is their largest city way up there, Huntsville. So yeah, as you can tell, these are just mountain regions, deep valleys, and you got some river valleys here too. So as of 2020, there are over 5 million people living in Alabama. And the most common ancestries are Irish, English, German, and Scots-Irish. So those of you who don't know what Scots-Irish is, it's just basically Scottish and Irish people who lived in the northern part of Ireland. So there you go. So if you ever go to Alabama, just be aware that there are some roads that are pretty flat and there are some roads that are pretty bumpy. Yeah, so let's conclude. What do you mean what? It is what it sounds like. All right, let's conclude today's class, people. So here's the license plate. Yes, Carmen, it was expired.
You know I'm looking. They're gonna owe some fees.
Yep, and we got to call the DMV of Alabama. So anyway, Heart of Dixie because, oh yeah, by the way, one of its nicknames is the Heart of Dixie, Heart of the American Deep South. And then it says, God bless America, kind of like it says on every dollar bill. Yeah. So just a real quick little bit of lecture about what Dixie means. There's a line in the U.S. map called the Dixon Line. And it basically divides north part and the southern part. So Dixie just is short for Dixon. That's all. Just in case any of you are wondering. So any songs with the word Dixie in it, that's pretty much where the name comes from. So anyway, Alabama is a U.S. state in the American Deep South with a lot more to offer than meets the eye. So it's known for its writers. It's known for its good food. Yes, Carmen, I know you like the ribs.
Yes.
And I know everybody likes ice cream.
Yes.
Yep, so...
Sarah, do you like ribs with me?
I like chicken.
You like the chicken? Okay.
And what was your favorite part?
Chicken.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone's favorite slide was the ice cream. I know it was my favorite. So, if any of you are interested in visiting Alabama, just remember this is the sort of information you'd want to take with you. It's a lot more than just a southern state. It's next door neighbor, Mississippi, its college roommate, offers the same thing. But here, it's a little more unique than that because you might be familiar with it. Thank you so much for joining me. See you on the road. And again, sorry. A little heads up. Next week, we're going to Louisiana.
Louisiana.
Jeremy.
Sure, good.